Namaste, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning for another session of Yoga Insights. Today's session will feature Jagatsevakji, who's joining us all the way from Canada. He's a Jyotshi, a Pujari, a mantra teacher, a father, and a devotee of the Vedic Sanatana Dharma. He's a student and disciple of the Bhakti lineage of Sadguru Sant Jagetsevakji, as well as the Mysore Krishna Yajurveda lineage of South India. He is also the author and voice of the Planetary Mantras for Beginners series, among other works. And in today's section, Jagatsevakji will bring to life the planetary forces that live within each of us. He will take us on a journey that highlights the role of each planet or graha, each planet or graha plays in bringing us closer to the divine. And mantras for each planet will be taught and practiced in an easy to learn and informative way. So let's welcome Jagatsevakji to join us. Namaste.
Namaste, Hari Om.
Thank you so much for being a part of Indica Yoga Insights, Jagatsevakji, and for joining us all the way from Canada.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much to you, Sophia and Indica, for setting this up. It's a great opportunity. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to hand over this session to you, and I'll see all of you towards the end for the questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So I'll begin by sharing my screen and we'll get started. So dear ones, happy day. Wherever this may find you in the world, happy day. This is our first mantra that we're learning. The mantra of happy day is the great way to remember the happiness that resides within each and every one of us. And that is an eternal happiness. It's the bliss that we're all seeking. So each and every day is the mantra of happy day. I use it as a greeting and I use it as a way of life. So I encourage you to embrace that as we go through this presentation together and enjoy the day together. Enjoy this beginning of the day, ending of the day, whatever part of the day this is for you. So our topic today is the planets within, a path to divine. I love this image. It's very evocative of the nature of how all is within us and all is without us. This beautiful concept of in and out, above and below. And we're going to explore that in great detail today. So before we can do that, we have to have some opening credits. Because in our play today, this is a play, and I want to invite you into that play. And before we start formally into the play, there are some opening credits. And in my lineage that I follow, it's traditional for us to start with a mantra. So these are invocation mantras. Some of you may know them. They're Vedic mantras. And so I offer these to invoke the greatness of the moment and the divine in the moment so that we may all be blessed by this knowledge and this experience today. Chant along if you know them. Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Mavamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvannoti Pisida Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajinivati Dinama Vitriyavadhu Ano Divo Brahataf Parvatara Saraswati Ajatagantu Yajnam Avan Devi Jujushana Gritachi Shakman No Vachamushati Shunotu Vagdevye Namaha Om Shri Virpurushaya Namaha Om Shri Jyotirvidyaya Namaha Om Ganganapataye 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 Namaha Om Namo Narayana. And now let there be peace. Let there be peace in this moment of this presentation. Let there be peace in our lives. Let the Supreme Lord protect us both, teacher and student. May the Divine One nurture us. Let the Almighty make us wise enough to apply our knowledge. Let us work together sincerely. Whatever we may learn today, may that be useful to us in our lives. Let us not have any animosity toward each other for any reason. Let us only love each other. This comes from the Narayana Upanishad. Beautiful. Now, it's traditional for us to salute our gurus. I follow the teachings of Lord Sri Satguru Dattatreya, my highest guru. And above here at the top, we have Mrs. Sadguru Sankeshwasji, Namadevi Acharya. Shantalaji teaches me Vedic mantra in the Krishna Yajurveda tradition. James Kelleher, my primary Jyotish teacher. Down here we have Mother Nature, of course. Mother Nature, of course, is the supreme teacher. And then the three gurus of my daughters, Willow Tenzin, Akira Eden, and True Maya. Glory to my gurus. Now, the lens of our play today is going to be Sanatana Vedic Dharma, or Vedic Sanatana Dharma, or Sanatana Dharma. So that's the lens that I am looking at the presentation. We talk about the planets within and the path to divine. I'm using that framework of understanding the eternal wisdom of the Dharma. And of course, I'm going to be using Jyotisha, which is also, in modern times, the last couple hundred years, it's been called Vedic astrology. So most people these days know, outside, especially outside of India, they'll know what is Vedic astrology. And then, of course, the lens is me, the limitations of me as a presenter, me as a being on this planet, me as a limited being on this planet. And I celebrate my limitations and I bring those limitations and awareness into the presentation today. So that's a part of the lens. Now, there's an important concept that we have in today's presentation as well. It's a beautiful saying, a beautiful Sanskrit phrase that comes from the Rig Veda, ekam sabdapra bhadavadanti. And in our world, this is very important because that which exists is one. There is one reality, one supreme. And the wise call it by various names, as we can see over here in this wheel of so many beautiful symbols. And there are so many more ways than are represented there. So Supreme Divine is one, but we can approach him in many ways. So the approach today that I'm doing is one way. There are other ways to approach this knowledge. And I celebrate that because ultimately we're all celebrating the Supreme One. So let's keep that in mind as we go through the presentation, because it's a very important idea. All right. And of course, I want to give you an invitation to play. Invitation into the play of today. So when I'm chanting, you're going to see on the screen things to chant. So chant along. If you have questions, make notes, write them down. I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. And at the end of every little bit of the presentation, the way it's organized is as a play. There are acts. And at the end of every act, you're going to see an Om. And when I get to that stage, I really invite you to chant that along with me, to deepen the knowledge, let it come inside of you, and have the great experience of this wisdom flowing through all of us. Now, as we say in Sanskrit, Atah, and now, let us begin. Act 1, the game begins again. In the Vedas, we speak about the game of life, the game of creation as Leela, a play. And so our play begins from the beginning. And I want you to embrace the now, embrace the void of now, from that eternal now, from that absolute beyond, beyond the beyond, beyond concepts, beyond thinking, beyond sound, beyond light, beyond. And in that beyond, there was a stirring. That stirring brought forth the sound, ah. And as that sound came forth, the light emerged. I'm emerged out of the nothingness. And that sound continued to expand. It expanded into more. The duality, the space began to fill. Oh. And the expansion continued until there was manifest reality and causation occurred. Oh. And this sound spread through the entirety. And that sound multiplied and expanded outward, 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 outward. The many forms, the elements emerged. And out of this expanding sound came the multiverse, the cosmic being, creating all things in all directions in all times. So many universes were born. And from this place where the Divine Mother was watching and gazing and spreading her Shakti, her energy through the entire verse, as creation unfolded, 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 all the while the sound Om is flowing. Now, in a certain part of creation, in a small part of one of the universes, there was this beautiful Milky Way galaxy. Isn't this a stunning place? And we're over here somewhere over here. And on the outer edge of this galaxy, there is a solar system, a system of planets, a place that supported life in many forms. And in these planets, there is one specifically that we call home. This home that is pregnant with so much life and so much creation, holding within it the entire manifest capacity of creation. This beautiful, tender, loving, caring, beautiful, oh, so divine, just ripe with opportunity. And on this planet, which is so infinitely beautiful, so breathtakingly beautiful, where nature just is so abundant and gives us so much as the creation unfolds from that absolute nothing into this beautiful landscape that only the painter divine can make happen. And on this very planet, Bhuloka, Bhumi Devi, Earth, this plane of existence. On this plane of existence, there are certain natural forces at play. There are the birds and the bees. I love this picture. It's so beautiful. Not only is it beautiful, but it's also showing the creative capacity of life to sustain itself and also life to be harmonious together. It's not the birds or the bees, it's the birds and the bees. It's not the sky or the ground, it's the sky and the ground. So this incredible capacity to create continued from that Om. Om's flowing through all of this. The hummingbird is great for this Om. The bee is great for this As the Om continued through manifestation, and here we come to this beautiful place where this creative principle continued. And life started to take form inside the being, like this beautiful couple. And that creative principle that started from that absolute nothing continued. And from this beautiful, beautiful being, this divine mother here, at the right time, crafted by that unseen hand, that divine unseen hand, at that right time. Bliss absolute, divine absolute, life absolute. And now I invite you to chant. Om. Now the game continues. Act 2. The basic rules of the game. Fun. The basic rules of the game. Every game has some rules. And this game of manifest reality has some rules as well. So let's explore those together. So in these rules, rule 1, divine will is supreme. There's only one being that can manifest all this amazingness. There's only one reality within all of this amazingness. And that divine will is supreme. No matter how we act, no matter what we do, at any moment, the grace, the divine will is pervading all of it and also is outside of it. It supersedes it. It precedes it. That divine will is all. And in the words of the great Ramana Maharshi, not an atom moves except by his will. And for those who prefer, not an atom moves except by her will. or those who also prefer not an atom moves except by its will. And for me, not an atom moves except by thy will. Not a blade of grass is grown, not a bird singing, not a cloud in the sky, not a star being born. All of this is the manifest truth. You know, somebody like Ramana, who is the seer of the seers, expounds this truth for us. Rule number 2, the spark of divine resides in all that is. The spark of divine resides in me, resides in Sophia, resides in all of you watching, resides in the mountains, resides in the planets, resides in the distant stars, resides at the depth of the ocean. That divine spark resides in the ant, in the insect, in the elephant, in the animal world. It resides everywhere. It resides in the sound, that divine spark, right? And it resides, look at this beautiful image. It resides in the eyes that we see. This is called the Helix Nebula. This is a star cluster where stars are born. This is a place of stars are born. And these are the sparks of divine being born in different forms. We have the human forms. Look, this is a divine form of countless beauty, like this immeasurable beauty. It's fantastic. Rule 3, duality and reality, duality and relativity pervade the game. So we have this game and there's duality and relativity. We know this. How does it show up? It shows up, for example, in our world, it shows up in the haves and the have-nots. Extreme wealth, extreme poverty, duality. It shows up in the sun and the moon. It shows up in the heat and the cold. It shows up in the wet and the dry. It shows up in the day and the night. It shows up in the black and the white. On and on and on, duality. And all shades in between. So this is part of it. Big, tall, small, sorry. All this reality, this duality is in us. It's all around us. It's part of the game. There's also relativity. Is this a delightful picture? Relativity. On the one side, we've got this, it's raining, it's raining, it's raining, it's raining. Beautiful. On one side, we've got somebody saying, it's raining, how glorious. And the other side, we've got somebody saying, rain. Relativity, right? The lens of how we see. Rule 4, actions have consequences. This is the key. Actions have consequences. Sophia asked me to do this talk. I say, yes, there's a consequence. I have to prepare the talk. I have to give the talk. Yay. Actions have consequences. We also call this fun with karma. Want to talk about karma? Action, consequences. How does it show up for us in our lives? Oh, hey. Actions, consequences. What's that? Action, consequences. Okay, action, consequences. Yeah, I had fun with that one. Now, some actions, like in the previous slide, have immediate consequences. Some actions have a little bit longer consequences and unintended consequences. As we can see, our oceans are definitely a place of showing unintended consequences a lot of the time. So some consequences show up a little bit later. Some consequences take much, much longer, and some of those consequences last lifetimes, 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 lifetimes. Now, some actions and some consequences take really long time. There's a little fuzzy slide, but the idea is here in the Vedic concept of time, time goes on and on and on and on. Long cycles. You can see on this one, long, long, long cycles of time. Millions, billions, even trillions of years. So when we're talking about actions have consequences, it's not just touching the stove, burning, it's the thoughts, the things that are done in this world, in this planet, in each one of us, that can go on lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. So then we have rule number 5, lessons repeat until transcended. Absolutely, right? We all experience that. Cycles, 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 cycles. We're thinking one level, time goes this way, it's linear. No, time is more cyclical. And then we experience, oh, another version of this lesson. Thank you very much. So lessons will repeat until they're transcended. And when they are transcended, wisdom dawns. And the game becomes much more interesting, a lot more fun too, because it is a never-ending cycle of catching the wave of wisdom, catching the wave of learned lessons. That's what we're doing here in this game. Beautiful, nice, catching the wave. Rule 6, there are nearly unlimited roles in the play. This is the concept of rebirth. Yes, we have karma and rebirth. And in rebirth, we get to go through this beautiful image showing the cycle of life from the beginning to the end, and then the recycling of that into new lifetimes. And of course, we're talking about long-term cycles. And we're also talking about many different life forms, right? Life forms. You take the soul, the divine spark from that infinite nothingness into the imminent now. Goes through many cycles. The soul in this one has gone through many cycles of life, innumerable ages to arrive at this moment. So we're talking about the interconnectivity as well of the way that the one represents through the manifest multiplicity. It's a beautiful way of saying we're all in this together. We are all in this together. Many cycles occur. All right, rule 7, we're almost done. Humans get a superpower. This is super important for what we're going to be doing today when we talk about the planets within and working with them. You get a superpower. It's super awesome. The superpower is choice. And the superpower is this idea of free will, the freedom to make a choice on our path. Do we go into the devolutionary path where we devolve, we stay stuck, we go downward? Or do we choose to go higher? Do we choose to grow? Do we choose to evolve? So on this plane, this game, we're evolving, constantly evolving towards what? Back to the source of where we're at. So we have a choice on this path. And today, your participation is a sign of that choice. And the mantras that we're going to be learning are part of the way we choose to go higher on the path. Agreed? Okay, so rule 8, last rule for this one. There is a purpose and there is an end to the game. We can say sort of, because we're talking about infiniteness. But the purpose is to realize that infiniteness, that we are that infiniteness. We are that supreme reality at our very core nature, that infiniteness, that endless end to the game. Isn't that so delightful? An endless end to the game. And so we find ourselves here, that there are examples on our plane of beings that have achieved this, have realized this. We call them the realized ones. We call them the seers. We call them the sages. We call them the rishis. We call them the great gurus, the Brahma rishis. So there's a purpose and end to the game, and that is to realize our supreme divinity, ourself, the truth of who we are. Just like dear Hans Babaji, oh Hans Babaji, shining example for all of us. Direct perception, direct truth. End of the second act. Chanting with me. Om. Moving along. Moving along, he says. Moving along to Act 3. The game board. So we have a game, we've got some rules, and there is a game board of life. Now we're looking at the game board here today from a bit of a Jyotisha perspective. So one of the principles is a beautiful principle that comes from the Ayurveda. Yatha pinde tata brahmande. Yatha brahmande tata pinde. And the idea is, we've heard it many times, is as above, so below. We can translate this in many ways. One of the ways is, as is the atom, so is the universe. As is the cosmic body, so is the human body. So this divine cosmos that we live in, under the sky, under the stars, under the moon, under the planets moving above, all that we see, all that is outside of us, said to live inside of us. The trillions of galaxies that live inside of us, so to speak, the billions. Beautiful. Let's keep this concept in mind, because it's very important to when we're going in with the planets. So for a long time, humans have stood, and you have done this as well, I'm sure, stood under the stars and looked and contemplated and wondered, where am I? What is this? What is this construct? What is this creation? What are the stars? How do I relate to them? Questions like, what are the laws governing the multiverse? I say multiverse, some say universe. What are the laws governing this entire Brahmand? And how are we connected to the cosmos? How are we connected? What's our relationship? Tata pinde, tata prabande. That question. So this question was so, captured so many minds, so many wise minds, the ancient ones over time, the ancient ones that lived through time, the wise ones in our own time. They looked to the sky and they started to see, this is called the ecliptic here. And there's the path of the sun in the changing seasons. And they looked to it and they started to give identity to the space that they could see, to the lighting up of the space, the lighting up of consciousness within, to see outside these symbols in the sky. How did they relate? What did they mean? They started to give them shape and names, started to see patterns in the sky. Now, these observations have been going on for a long time. Like this one, this is an observatory, a Mayan observatory. Long time people have been contemplating and calculating the importance of the sky. Now, this is before electricity and the 24/7 light show that we have that disturbs our capacity to see into the deep space, even to see the immediate space of the realm of our planets. But the contemplation has been there for a long time because the questions have always been there. What is our connection? What can we learn from above? What is there that is out there that we can relate to here? This is Jantar Mantar in India from the 1700s. This is an incredibly accurate human. Look at the size of it. This is an astronomy observatory, tracking the stars to about two second accuracy. Incredible. And even in today's time, we have the people, the modern world, the science, observing the stars and seeing deep as far as they can, and they cannot see even that far because it keeps expanding. The view, the more we see, the less we know. The more we see, the more there is to go. Ever outward, ever inward. So these patterns were there, and then patterns reveal themselves. They reveal themselves all the time. They've been revealing themselves through time. And the patterns of the planets are fascinating because they were observing patterns like these. You think that this might, when I first saw it, I thought this was like a sacred geometry class, but no, these are patterns of the way the planets move in the sky over time. These movement patterns create these geometric patterns, these observable patterns that can be tracked with with periodicity, with repetitiveness. And the wise ones, they were looking at the sky and they started to see that there were patterns that could relate to the earth. Oh, something's going on up there. When that is happening, where the sun is, when those planets are there, we're starting to see, this season, the season's changing. Whoa. But not only are the seasons changing, other things are changing. Beings are changing. Little human beings are also changing in relationship to the patterns of what's happening in the cosmos around us. And so the wise ones looked at this and they said, hey, we see these patterns that are affecting our life here on Earth. And we're seeing these patterns affecting individuals on the planet as well. So there's a branch of astrology that focuses on the bigger scales of time, the effect of the seasons, the change on the ages of humanity. And then there's a branch of astrology of Jyotisha that focuses on individuals. So that's a little bit what we're looking at today. Now, the wise ones said, hey, there's got to be a way to map this in a logical way that we can start to make observations and understandings about how the life will unfold based on the position of stars in the sky. And so we have and planets in the sky. So in South India, there's this chart. This is called a South Indian Kundali, or astrology chart, a natal chart. And over here we have a North Indian. Just telling us the same thing. But the idea is essentially, can we make an understanding about the nature of reality for this individual and the way that their karmas, their action consequence sequence of past lives, of the many lives of the soul, are going to play out in this life? How are the fruits of that karma going to bear out over time here? And with the wisdom of the Vedas, Jyotisha is the eyes of the Vedas, the eyes into knowledge, the eyes into the sight of the divine. With this wisdom that is tracked in these types of charts, a Jyotishi can start to help a being understand their path back towards divine, or back into divine, or with divine. Yeah, this is the whole purpose, to illuminate this path, the path of self-realization. It's the whole divine science. Now, of course, many parts of the world have also been doing this as well. The Chinese have their system of looking at the stars. The Babylonian Hellenistic had its own way of looking at the stars. But essentially, they're all asking the same questions. What is happening above that affects us down below? What is happening outside that is affecting us inside? So ultimately, there is a reflection. Is there a reflection of the ultimate reality that is shown inside a being? Do the planets, in this case, the luminary of the moon, does it reflect deeply into us, under the surface, into us in a way that we can understand not only the cosmos, but understand ourselves in the cosmic equation? Together. And we come to Act 4. This is the part where we get into the planets. These are the karmic players. Act 4, the karmic players. So in Sanskrit, we use the term graha. And graha is used for planets. Grahas are the agents of karma. I love this quote from my dear teacher, Swami Satyananda Saraswati. The 9 planets are called grahas. They are the holders and dispensers of the karmic lessons of life. And they are the evolutionary forces that teach us to grow and harmonize with the cosmic order. Graha in Sanskrit means a number of things. It means to seize, to hold, to grasp. My teacher, James Kelleher, says that the grahas are the forces inside of us that cause us to grasp after our desires in life, to grasp after with a certain sort of sense of unconscious compulsion, to grasp. And we are seized by that energy sometimes when, oh, I must have this, I must do this. And then also the habits that seize us. The habits that all of us have that are just like, oh my, I'm doing that again. So some we're conscious of us, some we're conscious of, and some we're not conscious of course. So these are the karmic agents when they act at different times in life to dispense the karma when it's time for it to be ripe and for us to have that experience. The experience of karma ripening from another being in our own lives, as a community, as a country, as a whole planet and nation, and whole populations in time and history in the great unfolding. Now, what they are not is, they are not like beings up in the sky going, hey, I'm Saturn, I'm watching you. Here's my rays, I'm making you have bad experiences. Oh, no. Here's your bad karma, here's your good karma. All that sort of stuff, that's not helpful to think that way. I mean, it's kind of funny to think that way, but it's not helpful to think that way because it's not representative of what's going on. The grahas are divine. The grahas are purely divine. They're part of creation. They're part of the will of creation. And the will of creation is to have the planets affect us in the way that karma is unfolding. This is their whole thing for us as humans. And they're affecting ages and ages and eons and eons. But they're divine. And anything that is purely divine, transcends that good badness, transcends that duality. So let's move beyond that concept. Our sadhana today, is, and sadhana means, for those that don't know, it's like our spiritual practice. Our sadhana today is to understand the functioning and role of each graha in our inner landscape and our spiritual evolution. Very practical. And then we're going to practice, for the rest of the time, we're going to be practicing easy to learn yet impactful mantra for each graha that can be immediately incorporated into daily life. So those are the two things we're going to be doing now moving forward for the rest of the presentation. But now that we understand the game, the rules, the game board, we can really dive into this more clearly. We begin with sun, Sol, Surya. Sun is the star of the show. Sun is the star in our sky. Sun is the star. And for us personally, the sun makes us want to shine. And we want to really shine because we want to feel that glowing divine nature inside of us. It's the soul. For individuals, it's considered the soul. There's the great soul, there's the soul of our sun, and there's the soul of what's called the Jivatman, the individual. And the soul, it is the life-sustaining power of our system as well. And without the sun, there's no life. So we have the great self, the individual self. It's the inner light of pure consciousness that's guiding us inward to the truth. It's that inner light, the Atman, soul, that's always showing us, even in the darkness of life, when we're all alone inside, there is something that illumines. There's the soul in us, and the sun is representing that unity consciousness for us. So this is a very important role. Sun is a very vital role for it. It's considered the most important graha in Jyotisha for this very reason. And its role, when we tune into it, like all the grahas have many significations. They represent many things in the outside world. They represent body parts, professions, all these types of things, relationships, etc. But we're looking inside. What do these represent inside of us in consciousness? And when we're working with the sun and the energy of Surya, we're asking ourselves inwards, how will I direct my self-consciousness? How will I direct it? Will I direct it to the highest truth? Or will I over-attach to ego? Because the sun gives us a sense of individuality, it gives us the I, the individual I, ego. And an inflated sun can really inflate ego in excessive ways. So we want to look for the truth, and we harness the sun to shine inside, because the shining of ourselves is not the shining of me, Jagatsevak, it's the shining of divine. And as long as we put the attention there, then we're on the right path. This is the sun. Inside of us is the moon, Chandra, Soma. It's the light of the mind. The moon is the reflection of the sun. It is reflecting the inner light of the soul. It's responsible for the deep, deep psychological awareness, the emotions, the feeling, those deep, deep water aspects of us that hide below the surface, the imaginations, the moods, the memories, the impressions, all of this. It's the self-aware mind that reflects, I'm here. And we would say it's the amrit, the bliss consciousness, when we start to really go into higher realms of consciousness. Spiritually, it's part of the path of the Divine Mother, because the moon needs nurturing, and a nurturing mind relates to the Divine Mother. So we have this call of moon inside to go deep. Now, how will I nourish my emotional relationship with divine? How will I nourish that? Will I be whiny, complaining, demanding? Or will I be peaceful? Will I be nurturing? And will I be balanced? All of these things are asking as we're going within with the moon, balancing the mind, finding equanimity. Meditating takes us in. This is the moon. We also have Mars, Mangala, the auspicious. Mars is like the power of will that exists inside of us. Burning fire, you see that fire? It's reflecting the inner fire of the soul. And Mars gives us incredible determination, energy, and power. Now, it can be too much. The power can be too much, can be overbearing, militaristic, so aggressive, or it can be purposeful, direct, intentional. It can give us incredible amount of discrimination inside. Mars relates to our discriminating energy and get clarifying about our attachments and where we're going to channel our desires, because Mars has this passionate energy within us going after our desires. And as we experience these, we have to have the courage and endurance to face the enemies within, because Mars is martial. It is the warrior. It is the spiritual warrior. It is the yogi or the yogini. It is the capacity to fight the good fight within and have the fire of self-control, to have that tapasya inside. So we ask, how will I channel my desires and ambitions? Will they be for divine goals? Will they be for short-term goals? Self-satisfaction goals? Will they be dharmic? Will they support life? Will they be evolutionary goals? Or will they be goals where we're supposed to say, or out of control, or out of control? That's supposed to say out of control and even violent. Mars can internally can create violence internally to our own system where that consciousness is not clear. We then have Mercury, Buddha, the light of discrimination. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. Mercury has the capacity to take divine principles and put it practically into our logical system of our understanding and our mind awareness. It's reflecting the inner intelligence of the soul. It is, the word in Sanskrit is the buddhi, and it's our intellect. So it has the path of discernment. There's a concept in Vedanta related to neti, not that, not that. And we take that a little further as well. We can take this further with the Buddha concept and make it iti neti. So we have not that, which is one way, the negation path. There's also the path that is iti neti, this, not that, this, not that, this. So the closer we get to divine, the realization of ourself within is constantly, this, not that, this, not that. And then eventually it's iti, this, this unending bliss, the path within through discrimination. So we ask, how will I cultivate the intellect for self-realization and establish a clear communication link with divine? Will it be clear? Will it be murky? Will it be logical and through with discrimination? Or will it be just excessive information gathering? More stuff, more things to do, more details. People often do this in their sadhana where they tend to add too much in their past. So discrimination is very important with the role of Mercury within. Our next planet is Jupiter, Brihaspati, the light of spiritual wisdom that shines externally in the guru. It's the reflecting the inner truth and the knowledge of the soul. This is what it is. It's the knowledge of the Atman. It's the knowledge of Paramatman, the great oversoul. And because Jupiter, another word for Jupiter is guru. And guru is the teacher within ultimately. And we have to have this dharmic alignment with our essential nature. And our essential nature is truth. Our essential nature is absolute consciousness and bliss. And when we harness the energy of Jupiter within, we start to get aligned with that dharma all the time in our lives. So it's the path of the guru and disciple. A lot of times it shows up as guru externally, and ultimately it becomes guru internally. We become both the guru and we tune into the guru within as a disciple of that guru within. And that takes a while. And there's also the path of faith, divine grace, and happiness. So we ask the question, Jupiter asked us, how will I align with this inner guru on the path to divine? Through belief systems or through direct knowing? Will it be direct knowing? Or will we hiding behind a belief system? Like, oh, I study the Vedas, so that is the truth. But that's different than direct knowing of what the Vedas are talking about, for example. Then we move on to our dear Venus, Shukra. Shukra is also a teacher, an incredible teacher, reflecting the inner love and beauty of the soul. Shukra is the brightest star and was the brightest teacher and the brightest student. Now, after we indulge internally in lots of fancy and wonderful divine luxuries within our imagination and within our own indulgences in our own path, the my of how divine things need to be. That's one way, but ultimately Shukra takes us into the direct teacher within, the direct path. And a very direct path is the unconditional surrender to unconditional love. This is the path, this is the high path of Prema Yoga. Prema Yoga, complete surrender to divine, Atmani Vedana, total surrender of ourselves to that divine bliss. And Shukra, once we go past the identification of I within, of the things that they want and want to indulge in all the luxuries and beautiful things of life, ultimately we go through the path of the Divine Mother, deeply within to that unconditional surrender. So the question is, how will I surrender in love and devotion to truth divine or divine truth? Will it be unconditionally or will it be with expectations? From there, we move to Shanidev, Saturn, and the great Shanidev, the teacher of humility and discipline. Shani gets a bad rap because not a lot of people like to be humble, not a lot of people like to deal with discipline in their lives. And it's just one of the facts of being human here on the plane as we play out this game. Shanidev is reflecting the inner strength of the soul. Shani gives great strength because his lessons are long. You have to persevere. Shani helps us internally accept the truth of our mortality. Saturn is the furthest planet we can see with our naked eye. It's the outer limits of our experience. It tells us about our mortality. It helps us realize our limitations, and realizing limitations is so essential in playing this game because then we don't overextend, then we can have humility to know, hey, my role is like this. My capacity is this. I work within my capacity. So Shanidev internally is the path of perseverance and patience. Oh Lord, give me patience. Give me the patience to have more patience. And on top of that, give me more patience still, dear Lord. Going ever within. And Shani is the servant, is karma yoga, the action of selflessness. Simply to act by doing the right thing. This is the great teaching of Shanidev inside. Can you act within? Can we act within doing the right thing inside before it even gets outside? So how will I use the time? Shani rules time. How will I use the time that I've been given to serve divine? This is an internal contemplation. Will it be in deep gratitude, humility, or will it be fear and attachment to suffering? Many people choose that path, and that's unfortunate. It is a happy day. You can choose another way. From Shani, we go into the two planets that are not planets, so to speak. They're called shadow planets, shadow forces, Rahu, or Svarbhanu, also known as the north node of the moon. He's the esoteric teacher of Maya. These are the forces that are responsible for the eclipses in the sky. And just like that, Rahu can eclipse our own internal capacity to be in touch with the soul, divine. So it reveals the soul through smoke and shadow. I like that idea. Through smoke and shadow, we navigate in. We navigate through the insatiable cravings, the impulsive compulsions that Rahu gives us. Rahu was the first addict, the headless addict going after the Amrita, the nectar of immortality. So he's always trying to get us to grow, constantly grasping after things. So we are navigating within the cravings of the body, mind, and spirit through Rahu. We have to be open with Rahu to the unexpected and the non-ordinary, because there's a path of mystery and transformation that happens with Rahu. Rahu, as the symbolic snake, is related to the Kundalini energy in the system. So we have systems of Tantra directly working with the Shakti, and Kundalini Yoga and other esoteric schools of wisdom, inward paths to dealing with this energy. And some paths are dealing with the shadow as well. So how will I harness my unconscious compulsions and direct them into the relentless search for truth and immortality? This, right? To go deeply in. Now, the path of Rahu and Ketu is a difficult one to tread, and not many choose to tread it. But we have to be aware of these forces. Ketu is considered the Buddhist. inside. Ketu, the other part is Svarbhanu, where Rahu is the head, Ketu is the tail, the body without a head, pure instinct. And as a result, we lose the head, lose the ego, lose the I-ness, and Ketu is the emancipator. And Ketu is the path beyond the light, entering into the void. Renunciation of the I-ness of living and non-attachment, total letting go, going beyond concepts. This is the real letting go. Going beyond concepts of I, me, mine, daughter, father, child, worker, spiritual aspirant, Shishya, all these concepts, they're concepts. And Ketu is taking us beyond those because we get dissatisfied with any attachment to any of these. Ketu brings us inward meditation paths that go right to the source, introspection, and unconditional surrender again, a more unity conscious. Ketu wants to, without the head, is wondering, who am I? The Jnana Marga, who am I? Aham Brahmasmi. Tattvamasi. So these are the roles that the planets play within us. Now we can work with them, but first we must close this chapter with an Om, this act with an Om. Om. And now, dear ones, we're in the finale. We're coming towards the end. Finale is the mantra superpower. So we're going to be working through the mantras of each of the planets quickly here. Mananata trayate iti mantraha. Mantra is that powerful thought meditating on which one can get across the ocean of rebirth. Sadhguru Sankeshavas. So when we chant mantra with consistency, sincerity, and devotion, the planetary mantras can soften our karmas and ease our path inward into divine. And they are always an offering of loving praise. We begin with the Nama Mantra formula. The Nama Mantra formula today is Om, which is in praise of the origin of all that is. Hreem, which is a seed sound to open the heart within the heart. Name, which is one of the names of the 9 planets. And Namaha, I surrender to the highest self. So the formula is, I surrender to absolute consciousness as it expresses itself from within in the form of the particular planet or graha. As our time comes to a close, we'll go through these quickly. Our dress rehearsal is going to be passing because I'm time conscious. As we go through, I've written it in 3 forms. Straight English, making the sounds. Below, then underline below A takes the note down. The note above A takes the note up. So mid-tone, low tone, mid-tone, high tone. We have English, transliterated English, and we also have Sanskritam. So for the sun, the mantra is, I'll chant it twice, then we'll chant it once together. Om Hrim Suryaya Namaha. Om Hrim Suryaya Namaha. Let's chant it together. Om Hrim Suryaya Namaha. And now, the mantra for the moon. Same formula. Om Hrim Chandraya Namaha. Om Hrim Chandraya Namaha. Om Hrim Chandraya Namaha. Wonderful. Now the mantra for Mars, Mangala. Om Hrim Mangalaya Namaha. Om Hrim Mangalaya Namaha. Om Hrim Mangalaya Namaha. We chant the next mantra for Buddha, Mercury. Om Hrim Buddhaya Namaha. Om Hrim Buddhaya Namaha. Om Hrim Buddhaya Namaha. Wonderful. Next planet is Guru, Brihaspati. We say this word, Brihaspati. Om Hrim Brihaspataye Namaha. Om Hrim Brihaspataye Namaha. Om Hrim Brihaspataye Namaha. Venus, Shukra. Om Hrim Shukraya Namaha. Om Hrim Shukraya Namaha. Om Hrim Shukraya Namaha. Saturn, Shani, Shaneshchara. Om Hrim Shaneshcharaya Namaha. Om Hrim Shaneshcharaya Namaha. Om Hrim Shaneshcharaya Namaha. Rahu. Om Hrim Rahave Namaha. Om Hrim Rahave Namaha. Om Hrim Rahave Namaha. And finally, Ketu. Om Hrim Ketave Namaha. Om Hrim Ketave Namaha. Om Hrim Ketave Namaha. Now let's go through them all in order, nice and quickly together, starting at the top. Om Hrim Suryaya Namaha. Om Hrim Chandraya Namaha. Om Hrim Mangalaya Namaha. Om Hrim Buddhaya Namaha. Om Hrim Brihaspataye Namaha. Om Hrim Shukraya Namaha. Om Hrim Shaneshcharaya Namaha. Om Hrim Rahave Namaha. Om Hrim Ketave Namaha. Hari Om. Now the mantras can be practiced on each day of the week, of course. Sunday is for sun, Monday is for moon, Tuesday is for Mars, Wednesday for Mercury, Thursday for Jupiter and Ketu, Friday for Venus, Saturday for Shani Dev, Saturn, and Saturday night for Rahu. We can have sadhana, which is our spiritual practice. So there's the joy of practice. These mantras can be used in a user-friendly offering where we offer each day, but there are also longer practices you can do with any of these mantras to go deeper within. And they're based on your commitment, your personal intentions, and the planetary cycles, the nature of your karma and your birth chart, and then the guidance from your guru as well. Om. So, dear ones, as they say in the Uddhava Gita, we must soar high to achieve this human birth, which is like an open door to liberation. When we work with the grahas within, through these mantras, we get closer to that eternal self. And we walk that path of liberation to soar higher. Then we become a light for others as well on the path. So, dear ones, I finish with an offering of health and peace for all of you. Om Shatamanam Bhavati Shatayuh Purusha Shatendriya Ayushevendriye Pratitishkati. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Well, thank you so much for going on this lovely journey today of the planets within. I hope you had a lot of fun going inward with it, getting to the mantras. I would have liked to be able to practice the mantras a little bit longer with you today. But please, the mantra of happy day, let it just reverberate through your life. And of course, if you have any questions about the mantras that we were doing today, if you'd like to receive a recording, you can always email me at this email address, and we can then go on to see how these grahas will live in your own life and transform your own life. I've been working with these for quite a long time, and the peace that comes with working with these helps tremendously in dealing with the troubled waters that inevitably cross our path. Yes? As we go within, may the divine always be with you. May you experience the light of the sun and the power of all that is your true self. Hari Om.
Namaste,
Now,
everyone.
namaste, namaste.
Thank you so much, Jagatsevakji. That was such an insightful, informative session. It's just so incredible how everything around us affects us and how we affect everything around us. You know, when I start thinking of the cosmos in terms of Vedanta or Samkhya or any of Indian knowledge systems, it's always just so humbling to understand how infinite everything is, and from within our finite selves to understand that infinity, it never ceases to amaze me. Never. I'd like, it never gets old. It never stops being fascinating. And we're so lucky we have this human birth, and you know, there can be so much purpose that one can follow. So I really hope everyone that was watching today enjoyed the session. I know I did. It was really, it's such a nice way to start the day, and your radiant smile. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, dear. I was so happy to do this with you today, and thank you for the opportunity. And you're so right. Everything you said, I 100% resonate with. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any questions yet, but I'd just like to remind everyone that, no, what happens is sometimes we get questions later. So please feel free, if you'll think of something later, to either email Indica Yoga, or you can get in touch directly with Jagatsevakji. His email address is in the chat box, which is available to everyone. So you can take it down from the chat box. And also, please remember, we record all our sessions. So if you'd like to share this session with anyone, it will be available on the Indica Yoga YouTube channel, our social media, and on our website. So just to remind everyone of that. And I still don't see any questions, but before we sign out, is there any message you'd like to share with everyone?
Oh, you know, dear Sophia, the message is simply peace, love, joy. You know, after all of this, you know, working with the grahas, we're still ultimately working with the self. And as they say, as Krishna said to Uddhava, the Vedas talk about the planets affecting the jiva, but not the self. So the grahas, when we're working with the grahas, it's so that we can get cleaner and purer, and not to do anything to the self, because the self doesn't need anything done. And it's really just working through our own karma, and all this sort of stuff. So purely, it's just really to just share that joy with everybody, and everybody be blessed with love on their path.
Thank you so much. That's such a nice message. And may everyone be blessed with love, and maybe also have the insight to appreciate that love. Sometimes we forget to do that, and realize how precious that sentiment is when it is offered with authenticity. So a great message to end the session with. Thank you so much. For everyone who joined us this morning and who will be watching this later, thank you so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed the session as much as I did. It was just so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye for now.
Thank you. And I'll see all of you next week for our next session of Yoga Insights. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Namaste.